Woohoo. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Castles, Capes, and Clones presents The Mandalorian.
Yay!
I think we need like a proper actual title because I don't know what to call this.
I know. If you have a title, everybody, leave it in the comments below.
Yeah, like originally I think I wanted to call it The Mando Fan Show, but someone already has that, so
Yeah,
we got to
somebody
think of
has some.
something else. There's a whole. I'm
Right.
trying to think of a bunch of ones, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but this is the podcast slash YouTube channel show where we talk about The Mandalorian and the fact that the premiere episode happened this morning at midnight.
Yes.
And yeah, normally we would have three of us. So with me today is Loren,
Hello.
and the closed door below my picture is usually our friend Thom, who's
Yeah.
having some technical difficulties. So
Ah.
hopefully he'll be here for the next episode. Um, we'll be doing these every Friday at the same time after the episode airs that in the morning.
Hmm.
So let's just dive into it, shall we?
Okay. Yeah.
So this episode, so it's interesting that they go. It's chapter 9, so they're not doing a reset and saying this is chapter 1, season 2. It's the continuation of season 1
Right.
because the last episode of season 1 was chapter 8, and now this is entitled chapter 9, The Marshal.
Do we know? Is there any time lapse between the season finale of season one and the season premiere of season two?
Um, Not from what I've seen in the any kind anything, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
on like the episode guide, or it's not. They didn't say anything really in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so who knows? I don't think it's like
Like leaps
years,
and
but
bounds. Yeah.
I feel like maybe it's months.
Yeah.
But even that's something like in between even some of the episodes. I feel like there's a lot more time that passes than they actually tell you,
Right.
right? So who knows?
Yeah.
So like I said, this episode's called "The Marshal," written and directed by Jon Favreau. Um, what's your initial thoughts on this one?
I really enjoyed it. I like the Western feel of it. I mean, even the music was like on the nose Western. You have your marshal in the town, in this mining town,
Right.
and kind of opened the world of Tatooine. I think a little bit wider than what we're used to seeing Mos Eisley and Mos Espa. So what was this Mos Kolob? Was
Must I
Mos?
can't something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I thought that that was really cool. I really enjoyed the character of Cobb Vance, and we'll get into him a little bit in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that it was very interesting. It was very Western, like even the Tuscan Raiders and the town folk working together is kind of like the Native Americans and the pilgrims
Right.
working together. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I definitely got more of a Western vibe from this. I mean, like it's been touted as overall a Western,
Right,
right?
but this
Um,
was like very
yeah,
like in your face Western. I thought.
yeah, um, yeah. Like it's you're right. Like everything, the music kind of played more into it. Definitely the setting.
Hmm.
Um, like part of me is always like, I hope we see more new places.
Yeah,
Um, so when they're like, "Oh, we're going back to Tatooine," I'm like, "Again?"
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like we did that last season. You know, uh, we went there in Rise of Skywalker. It's everywhere. But what I like about this episode, whereas the last time we were in Tatooine last season,
Mm.
where that one kind of felt like a throwback, like, oh, check out what you know of Tatooine. Here you go.
Yeah,
This one was more like, this is Tatooine. This is how it is, really.
yeah. It was like
You know?
world building
Yeah,
on Tatooine.
exactly.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it expanded on who the Tusken Raiders are,
Hmm.
right? And you're right. It has that kind of like Native American vibe
Yeah,
to them, because obviously through um, what history teaches us and what TV shows based on that time period.
yeah,
The Pilgrims and the settlers would call them savages and whatnot, and that's exactly what the people in the village, or
yeah. They
whatever you
were
want to call that,
initially
moss, whatever it's called,
called. I
um,
think it's called.
something like that. Um,
Yeah.
even it's funny that even the God, why am I blanking on what the species is? The Weequay. Is
Oh,
it the Weequay?
yeah, Weequay.
That's right, because he called him Weequay. So I'm like,
Yeah,
did you
yeah.
just
The guy's
call
name.
him like by his race? So
Yeah.
I'm like, or is
Which I
that
thought
the?
was very, very much a Western thing
Yeah,
to
right.
do.
Yeah,
To call
yeah,
somebody like Injun Joe or
right.
something
Like,
interesting like that. I
but
mean,
I think it was funny that he's the one in the little scene where Cobb Vanth is telling the villagers that they have to, you know, work with the Tusken Raiders, and he's like, they're monsters, and
yeah,
coming from a character or a species who could be seen as the monsters
yeah.
because they're very I wouldn't say aesthetically beautiful, but they're like wrinkly and dark, weird
Hmm.
looking. So and in Return of the Jedi, they're kind of portrayed as like Jabba's henchmen, so they're kind of like they have this villain kind of
Oh yeah.
vibe to them.
Villainous. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool that the character who we would probably see as the monster because it looks
Hmm.
so different is the one going like the Tusken Raiders, they're the monsters,
Right. Yeah.
right?
I
Yeah.
thought that was very interesting. And it was like having the Native Americans without the racism. Which was, I mean, unless
Yes.
you count racism against the Tuscan Raiders.
Yeah. What I liked about the Tusken Raiders also was that their communication, while we only got glimpses of it in the movies, they really expanded on their communication because it's not just vocal.
Hmm.
They use like a sign language,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Like with grunts and their yeah, they it was very interesting seeing them kind of communicate with the two guys.
yeah, right. Like the one who's like the translator.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a very yeah, like settlers versus Indian kind of Western vibe to it.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
um, what what did you think of the beginning scene, the opening scene?
The opening scene where at the boxing ring.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, we had seen a bunch of that in the trailer, and I thought it was just as fun. So I enjoyed it. Uh, I didn't realize those were Gamorreans in the boxing ring until the second time I watched it. I'm like, oh, there they are.
oh really?
Yeah,
Oh yeah. There's like it's funny. So the character that we meet is named Gor Koresh.
uh-huh.
And it's a fun fact that he's voiced by John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
John
I saw.
Leguizamo.
I figured that was him because I saw his name in the credits.
Yeah, just kind of
Yeah,
like Horatio Sands was that blue guy.
yeah,
So I like that there's like cameos ish,
yeah.
right? Um, but you know, I think it's interesting that they're like it's the quintessential double cross kind of thing.
Hmm.
Goes for to him, but it's funny. It's interesting that he's definitely on this quest. So like, it begs to question like how long has he been on this quest to get to this
Yeah.
point? Like what's he been doing? Um,
Right.
but I like how Baby Yoda. I mean, we saw it in the trailer. Like here's the thing about the stuff they revealed before the show. Like
Hmm.
that would have been a cool scene to see Baby Yoda react to the Mandalorian up like starting up that whistling bird thing
Yeah.
weapon, right? Because I thought that would have been like a cute scene to experience without knowing it was there.
Right.
Um, but it's funny. Like they're always like, "Do you want to do this with a child here? There's no place for a child to be." And Mandalorian's always like, "Yeah, you've seen worse."
Yeah.
Um, and it's one of my things from last season is that what has become of the child? Like, what does all of this violence around him teach
Hmm.
him, and how will that affect him moving forward? Right, and
Right.
it's still there. But at the, like what that scene of him closing his pram doors
Hmm.
is that he knows what's coming. Right, he understands that violence is going to happen.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Right.
Yeah. I thought that was a lot of fun, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed that scene.
Um, Another thing about that scene is so when the Mandalorian is going towards the fighting arena, whatever you want to call it, um, the red eyes that you see in the darkness.
Hmm.
I'm pretty positive those are callbacks to. Oh, man, what is that species? Um,
Mm.
it's uh, Fernox for something. But
I don't know.
these were those creatures. If you watch Rebels, Sabine and Hera go to pick up some supplies or whatever from an abandoned fortress,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, I
it's
remember that
overrun by
episode.
these creatures that survive in darkness. Right, they can't go into the light, so that's why I think it's the same. Those are what get. Um, and I should say, we should have said in the beginning, like we're gonna have spoilers in this episode. So
Hmm.
if you haven't seen it this far, go watch it first and then come back.
Right.
But the creatures that eventually get Gor Koresh, because the Mandalorian leaves him hanging from a light post,
Right.
and then he shoots the light post, so that it gets dark. Uh, I think it's kind of cool that they're using things again from other formats. I mean,
Right.
we saw Lothcat last season. I think we did see these same creatures, Fernox also last season, but we didn't really see like it wasn't really called to attention. This
Yeah.
time we definitely got to see them ish, but we know what they do,
Yeah.
obviously, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so here's that. But let's move to Cobb Vanth.
Yeah. That's now he's one that's an interesting one. I know he comes from the books,
Yes.
and I don't know much about him. But was that Boba Fett's armor that he was wearing?
That is, it's never ever ever said that
Yeah.
is like no
His
one ever
armor.
says this belonged to Boba Fett.
Right.
Um, but in the book, so um, in the books, it happened. The way he gets the armor is different than it is in this episode.
Uh-huh.
In the book, um, he finds the armor through actually like a trader.
Hmm.
So he doesn't buy it from the Jawas like in this episode.
Yeah.
In the books, he gets it from a trader or something like that.
Right.
But even then, they never said it was Boba Fett's armor.
Yeah.
They just kind of described it, kind of the way it is. It's
And
beat
like,
up, it has damage, but
yeah.
all signs point to it being Boba Fett's armor because when you look at it, also on the right by the shoulder
Mm.
is the Fett symbol,
Yeah. That's
right?
what I was thrown off by that red, that like burgundy colored shirt that he was wearing. So
Right.
I was like, I can't figure it out. But I thought, I think it's that, and he's got the jetpack and everything. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, how many suits of Mandalorian armor are there on Tatooine?
Oh, that's the question, right? That's why
Yeah,
he goes there.
yeah,
Because someone says they saw a Mandalorian, and that's
right,
probably what they're referring to. Because I feel like the world kind of knows the myth or the stories of the Mandalorians and their iconic kind of look. So,
yeah, yeah.
um, what's interesting about like what I liked about Cobb Vance's look is that
Hmm.
you can tell that armor was not made for him. It's kind of
Right,
ill-fitting,
yeah,
right? Like the helmet's too small for him a little bit. The armor itself, like it seems like Cobb Vanth is a bigger person than whoever fit in that armor,
yeah,
right? Uh, but I mean, it has a lot of like the color is correct, right?
yeah.
And if you look at Boba Fett, if you really look at Boba Fett, a, like if you change Cobb Vance's shirt to beige,
Hmm.
that's closer to what it is because like if you really look at Boba Fett, it's a lot of shirt, pants.
Yeah,
It's the armor doesn't cover as much as I think people see.
yeah.
So, um, but what did you think of Cobb Vanth from someone who didn't
Yeah.
know who he was, what his story is, or whatnot?
I really liked the character. I kept thinking that he was going to become a bad guy, like when the what was that? Was it a sarlacc or was that some other creature that was going through the town that they ended up killing? What was that?
That's the Crate Dragon.
Oh, okay. Ah, okay.
So
So, oh, go
the
ahead.
Crate Dragon, if you remember in A New Hope, when
Uh,
C-3PO and R2D, like C-3PO is separated from R2 because he went on his own direction, and you see this huge skeleton.
yeah.
That's the Crate Dragon skeleton.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Crate
I s-
Dragon is the when you first see Obi-Wan in A New Hope,
uh,
pre special edition.
yeah.
The sound he makes is supposed to be the Crate Dragon sound. That's
Oh,
what
interesting.
scares the Tusken
The
Raiders.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know any of that.
yeah,
Uh, but
but yeah.
anyway,
That
when he was when that thing was riding through the town, I kept expecting him to push Din Djarin into the
oh
path, and then I kept going, he's going to turn on him somehow. So I'm glad that they didn't. I'm glad that he, ended up being like a new ally for uh for the Mandalorian, and that he was true to his word, that he gave him the armor. And yeah, my big question was that Boba Fett's armor, and we think that it might be.
I mean, it pretty much is. I mean, like,
Yeah,
I don't think we're ever gonna get and this is Boba Fett's armor line.
right.
Um, I mean, we might, but um,
Because who knows? Who would know? I mean, outside of, he wasn't considered a Mandalorian himself, and
Well, that's the thing. Like, we don't actually know that.
yeah,
Obi-Wan is the only person in any form that's called out. Really, well, not no, not Obi-Wan. I don't know, it's Pre Vizsla or someone from Clone Wars on
uh,
Mandalore. Just at the
uh,
mention of Jango Fett,
yeah,
um, they just kind of denounce them. Doesn't mean that
hmm,
they weren't. It could mean that they weren't ever Mandalore, or
right,
they might have been a disgraced clan.
yeah,
Who knows? So, but I don't think that's like common knowledge around anywhere. I think the reason why you adopt that armor is to have that, that kind of reputation. Like, oh, he's a
uh-huh,
Mandalorian, and Mandalorians, even like the townsfolk are like they're good at killing.
right,
So I don't think people know that Boba Fett was not a Mandalorian. I think they might assume it. I think he probably would want them to assume it so that they already have a preconceived notion that he is a killer. And
yeah,
if you want to hire a bounty hunter, you probably
you
want
need to have,
something like that,
right,
right? So,
exactly.
um, where we're going with this? Uh, but yeah, where were we before talking about this?
Let's see,
Boba
we were
Fett
talking
armor.
about Cobb Vance and
Yeah,
oh my gosh, I can't remember. I know we were talking about Cobb Vance,
yeah.
but I can't remember exactly what part we got to. Now we talked about the
Well, it was
dragon.
his armor. I mean, the thing
Oh
about the
yeah, yeah,
armor is that no one, like, yeah, we're never gonna get the only one who can say the whose armor that is Boba Fett,
yeah. Mhm.
um, or possibly some other bounty hunter that knew Boba Fett or
Yeah,
whatever. Um,
yeah,
so, but I don't think that's gonna be one of the things like, oh, you've got Boba Fett's armor, um,
right.
especially considering what happens at the end of the episode. But
Yeah.
yeah. Um, it's funny, like the Crate Dragon in the books have always been portrayed as pretty much almost like this. I
Uh-huh.
think the size is different. I think in the books it's smaller than this.
Yeah. It looks
Um,
smaller in the New Hope in the New Hope too.
um, I mean, one because we've never actually seen one. Obviously, the
Right.
only thing we have to go over is a skeleton in the distance from where C-3PO is. So even then, we don't know the scale because we don't know how far C-3PO was from it.
Right.
Um, in the books, it is fairly big, but I don't think it's as big as it's portrayed here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I want to say that it actually didn't travel underground in the books,
Hmm.
but in the books were never canon. It was just kind of,
Yeah.
you know, people's interpretations of it.
I think it makes it more dramatic for it to go underground. Like that whole scene when it goes through the town
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, what is that? What is that going underneath the town?
Right.
And it was kind of scary. It was like Jaws.
Yeah.
Like that scene from Jaws when they first see the shark.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, it reminds me of two things.
Mm.
The sandworms from Dune,
Mm-hmm.
and also there's in this game called Mass Effect. There are these underground worm type things called Thresher Moths.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, three things. Because then there's also I can't remember what they call it in Rebels, but there is the creature that when you first see Rex again with the other clone troopers, they go fishing with Zeb for that underground worm thing. Also,
Mm-hmm.
you remember that?
Yep.
So, but it's not. That was smaller than this, but
Yeah.
same kind of thing. It traveled underground. So when I first saw it, I thought it might have been something like either something like that. I didn't actually expect it to be a crate dragon until you kind of hear it. When you
Right.
hear it, you kind of recognize that sound. Um, so
Yeah.
you know, I think it's
That thing
again,
was vomiting all over the place.
yeah.
Was it acid or was it
That's what I thought, but then it
yeah
didn't seem like anyone died from it,
died? Yeah.
right? It might have been like not like I guess it's not like alien xenomorph acid that pretty much just eat at you until you
Right.
die. Because
I
it
think we're
looked
so
like
used to that.
yeah, because I honestly don't think anyone died from it. I think the only people that died were the ones who got eaten,
Mm.
right? Um, so I don't know. Like
Yeah.
like at this point for these things, they're kind of making up things, you
Right.
know. So there's
But
that.
I thought it was cool that the whole town got together, the town and the Tuscan, again, they all got together to destroy this creature, and everybody had something that they wanted from it, and yeah, I thought
Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
yeah. And we got to see like two people in Mandalorian armor using their jetpacks.
Yeah,
Though
that was really cool.
I did kind of figure out how they're going to kill it at one point. I'm like I'm pretty sure he's going to go inside the belly, and
Right.
that's the only way they're going to kill it.
That's
Um,
always the case.
because we've kind of seen that before in other things.
Yeah.
We saw Iron Man do it,
Yeah.
right? So, and in Rebels, that's kind of what happens with Zeb.
Uh-huh.
So, I kind of knew that was coming. Um, but like regardless, it's a cool scene. You
Yeah.
know, and ever since we saw the making of the season one, and looking at the volume, like I'm watching this, going like, where does the scene end, and where is the volume being used, and
That's what
it's
I wanted to know. Like
you know,
what that scene when they have the Tuscan Raiders on the Bantha,
yeah,
and I'm like, how did they film that? Was that using the volume, or was that? I mean, were they on location? I don't know. It's really hard to tell the difference. Like, I'm assuming that the when they're on the speeders, that's the volume.
yeah,
But yeah, certain scenes, I'm like, that's not the volume, is it? It's too um like too technologically advanced. I mean, I don't know. Not that the volume isn't technologically advanced, but you know what I'm trying to say.
yeah. And I don't think that they're just in the volume. I think for a lot
Hmm.
of things they do it. I think there's some things they could go practical.
Yeah.
Because like even when we saw um, the making of before, there was some location stuff. So
Hmm.
it'd be interesting though what happens with season three when they start
Yeah.
that, given the way things are now.
Right.
And for the other shows. But like, yeah, like I was watching, part of me was like, can we really tell? Like, oh, this is volume. Oh, this is not. Oh, this is like, how good has it become? Where, like, now that we know of that technology, can we tell that
Hmm.
that's being used? And I don't think it is. Like, I can't. Some scenes where like I know they're using the volume here, but I can't tell where the screen ends and the practical begins.
Yeah.
And I think that really makes this technology. It almost couldn't have come at the more opportune time for Hollywood,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
given what's going on.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Totally.
with all their other productions now, looking to use it, I'm looking forward to seeing what people come up with in terms of pushing
Yeah.
the boundaries of it.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah,
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 very cool. Very cool.
yeah. The thing about Cobb Vanth, again, like there's a thing like over the course of the last couple of months, them announce like I can't remember if it was officially announced. Maybe it wasn't officially announced, but like any mention of anyone starring in the show and just knowing that Cobb Vanth was a name, I already knew. Like once I saw the title of the episode, I'm like, oh, this is the Cobb Vanth episode
Yeah.
because I know what to expect. And like I knew kind of his,
Roll.
yeah, you know what I mean. Like that's why when they said Timothy Oliphant is in it and he might be playing Cobb Vanth, I'm like, I know exactly how he's going to play it, and I feel like it's perfect.
Yeah.
But part of me wishes I didn't know that that
Yeah.
was him. Um, just so that I wouldn't I like I missed the thing about this episode that I miss is the
Mm,
Baby Yoda moment
right.
of the first episode of the first season. There was just
Yeah.
like because none of us knew what to expect, none of us knew what was going on. You're like, oh, that's cool, an IG droid, that was awesome, and then all of a sudden you have a Baby Yoda. You're like, what?
Yeah.
I feel like they tried to do that with this episode, but they couldn't because there's too many rumors going around.
Yeah.
Um, at the end of this, you see Tomorrow Morrison, overlooking what just happened,
Right.
right? And I feel like that reveal, not knowing that he would be in the show, that
Hmm.
reveal would have been way more impactful.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh, there he is,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think
Um,
so. I'm
yeah,
just glad that he didn't turn out to be a villain.
Cobb Vanth. Cobb
Yeah.
Vanth is more like Jonah Hex.
Yeah. I can see that. I loved my favorite scene in the episode was their standoff in the bar,
Yeah,
and they're just kind of sizing each other up, and I thought that was a kind of cool thing. And then they hear the dragon going through the town, and they go out there, and you know that's when uh, Cobb Vanth proposes a
yeah,
um, something for them to do.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's one of my favorite scenes. I do like the use of the jetpack. I mean,
yeah, that was fun.
like John Favreau has said, like he's taking from all different aspects of Star Wars, including like toys that never were actually in the movie, like the stormtrooper transport.
Hmm.
And the thing about Boba Fett has always been like I think that what makes Boba Fett such an iconic character in Star Wars is not just his appearance in the movie, but like this. There's a lot of myth and lore tied to him as a thing. You know, Boba Fett. Um, what's it called? The toy is
Hmm.
like this like it's a myth. Like the existence of the prototype missile firing Boba Fett, where
Hmm.
there are people who say it never actually did exist in
Yeah,
prototype form. People say that does because they hear it is.
yeah.
Um, there's different versions of it. But the whole
I'm
big
pretty
thing
sure that it
was,
did.
I mean, I think it's still up for grab. It's all still up for debate because there's experts who come from Mattel or whatever say no, we never actually made it.
Hmm.
And then there's people who say that we did.
Yeah.
Here it is. So then people say, well, someone must have rigged it or whatever. But the whole myth that we send in back in the day where you send in the proof of purchase and whatnot, and
Hmm.
you get a mail in, and the Boba Fett came in the mail, and it was supposed to originally have a firing missile that supposedly did happen, and some kid died because they get choked on it, which that is also a myth, like a legend. story
Right. Yeah,
that
I know.
people are saying that never really happened. Um,
Yeah. I
so
hated all children that choked on those things because I loved when you could fire missiles from your toys.
right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like so, Boba Fett always has this. It's not just the him in the movies. Like the Boba Fett, just Boba Fett, like has all these mysteries tied to him. So
Hmm.
I like the fact that they called attention to the jetpack missile firing, the missile firing jetpack
Yeah,
in it,
that
right?
was cool.
So that was cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I kind of wish that Din Djarin let him keep the Mandalorian armor.
I do too for a little bit until I saw the last scene, and then that
Yeah,
made sense. So the last scene, again, spoiler alert. Tomorrow Morrison is overlooking them as they're riding off into the sunset, but
yeah,
he turns around and you see him, but it's like, I mean, he's definitely grizzled, but he's got like a bantha stick, and he doesn't have any of his obviously his armor. So,
hmm,
but it begs again. It's just more question because he's Boba Fett, and it's not like Cobb Vanth was a secret. Like
right,
you know, like the Mandalorian is there. Din Djarin is there because someone on another planet says there's a Mandalorian on Tatooine. So you got to
right.
figure if Boba Fett is on Tatooine, he would know
Yeah,
that Cobb Vanth has his armor. So I wonder
interesting.
what that means.
Yeah,
Like is because it doesn't seem like he's itching to get it back. Because I feel like he probably could have if he wanted
yeah.
to, right?
He kept because he just kind of shows up at the end,
Yeah.
and he didn't bring Fennec Shand with him, which I'm totally mad about.
And that's another thing. So who was it that found Fennec Shan? Was
Yeah,
it Boba Fett or
yeah, I think it was.
was it Cobb Vanth? Um, you know,
Although I would imagine that if it was Cop Vance that we were seeing
I mean, we
something.
didn't have enough. It's not like Cobb Vanth sat there and go like, "Come to my house. I'm nursing this almost dead person." Uh, you know what I mean? Like, so it
Yeah,
could be, or it could be that it was Boba Fett that found her, and she's like healing somewhere or whatever.
yeah, I hope
Um,
so.
yeah, I am hopeful that she is in it. Like, I feel like who knows what this scene does. Like, I don't know where the next episode goes.
Hmm.
Like, does he stay on Tatooine for a little bit,
Yeah,
or does he leave again? Because if he leaves
yeah,
again, what happens? Like, is this going to be one of those? Towards the end of the season, we'll come back to Tatooine, and that's when, kind of like the last season, Mandalorian, Cobb Vanth, maybe Cara Dune, Grieve Karga show up, and they have to do something, and who knows what it is. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, um, yeah. Uh, some cool thing. I don't know if you noticed Cobb Vanth's speeder bike.
Yeah. It was bigger.
No, there's that. Does it look familiar to you? Do you remember it?
Uh, oh God, I can't remember. Okay, I give up.
So um, Ray's from the sequel trilogy,
Hmm.
her bike or whatever you want to call it is actually made out of a pod racer engine.
Oh, interesting.
Does that
Ring a bell.
yeah? Does
So
that help? Does it
was
help
that
at all?
was that the one that Anakin used?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
I mean,
Yeah, I did
it
not know
might
that.
be, but it looks very much like Anakin's pod
Yeah,
racer engine. Yeah.
yeah, and
So
yeah, he had been scavenging for stuff, so I don't imagine that. It could be correct.
Right. That's kind of cool. And
Yeah.
also, obviously, we got the appearance of Amy Sudeikis.
Uh-huh.
Sakaris? How do you pronounce her name? Is that it?
Sedaris. Amy
Sedaris.
Sedaris.
Sudeikis.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Uh, what's his name? The Biker Scout. Jason. Sedaris Sudeikis. Starts with an S. It's fine. And the cameo, another cameo appearance by R5 was on.
Yeah.
Like, I think I like that also. That R5 is still around
Yeah.
doing his R5 things.
He's
Uh,
become so popular these days.
you know, like again, I think I mentioned it last season, but like he was mentioned in a story from a certain point of view. The story is from A New Hope, where there's a story of how he and R2 were conversing in the Sandcrawler, and R2's
Yeah, I heard
begging
that.
him to help him because he's on a secret mission to help the galaxy, and R5 kind of sacrifices himself
Uh-huh.
to help R2, and that's why he blows up motivator, and Luke ends up with R2. Um,
Interesting.
I mean, like it's one of those things. Like some people argue whether or not that's actually canon. I like to think so, and then he just ended up not being destroyed and ended up uh,
Yeah.
somewhere. So it's cool.
I think that I like that story.
Yeah. Normally, I don't know where, but like usually there's like the name of the next episode, but I haven't been able to find that, so I don't know what the next episode is.
Yeah.
But because then we can kind of speculate. But what is there anything else about this episode that kind of stood out to you?
Let's see. Let's see. I think I pretty much talked about everything, like, the questions I had,
Mm-hmm.
and uh yeah, there's nothing to stand out as. I just thought it was an excellent episode overall.
Yeah, and it was a long episode by
Yeah,
Mandalorian
longer.
standards. It was 54 minutes long. Um, so I wonder if that'll carry on or if it's going to continue being like some of them were really short last season. So I wonder if that's still going to happen.
I think
Uh,
that I think that they did it for this episode. Like, usually the first episode and the last episode of a season tend to be longer, and so I have a feeling that the others will, not be as long.
right.
Yeah, I say that now, not knowing.
All right. Um, trying to see. Yeah, I don't know where. I don't think anyone has the chapter titles yet,
Hmm.
but you know.
Yeah, and
Um,
we shouldn't get them because then it's going to be spoiler.
well,
Like
I mean, like last
when they
time we got it,
release the
kind of
title
thing.
Ahsoka.
Like I doubt they're gonna do that. Um, because I think not enough people knew who Cobb Vanth was to put two and two together.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I mean, I thought that that was really cool that they took, because the books I think are the most like left out of the
yeah,
uh, things that are canon, and so it's kind of cool that they included him in this.
yeah, yeah. So all right, yeah, I don't think there's anything much left to talk about on this
Mhm.
episode. So yeah, I have no real predictions for next episode. Like
Yeah,
we're just getting started on this one. It seems like he's definitely on his quest to find Baby Yoda's species, and that's why
yeah.
he's seeking out Mandalorians because the Mandalorians were all he knows is that he might be part of the Jedi,
Hmm.
right? And the Mandalorians kind of have a history with the Jedi, so he's trying to find more Mandalorians to lead him to probably some Jedi.
Yeah,
Little does he know that he on Tatooine there is a Jedi living.
yeah.
Oh wait, no, this is after. Never mind. There is no Jedi,
Right,
but
right.
there's an old. homestead that used to have a Jedi living there
Oh yeah.
that we'll see again in like 25 years.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So true.
Um, yeah. So that's it for this episode. We'll be back again next week, hopefully with Tom, with us. Hopefully
Yes.
we get those technical issues going. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to hit like and be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification. Besides the podcast, we do have content coming out a lot. Um, and then, let's see. You can reach us at podcast at castlescapesandclones.com. And you can find me online and social at Instagram and Twitter at R2Romasanta.
Mhm.
How about you?
You can find me on Twitter at @lowjav, and you can find me on Instagram at Loren Javier.
Cool. What other? And then you can also find the Castle Capes and Clones. What is it?
Our YouTube channel.
uh, well, our YouTube channel is it is it now Castle Capes and Clones, or
No,
is it like a weird number?
it's youtube.com/castles capes clones. No, and because it was too long.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm hoping that it doesn't confuse too many people, but there's no, it wouldn't allow for and.
All right. You can find us on Instagram at Castles, Capes, and Clones, and on Twitter at CCC Disney Uni. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in and thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yep, and catch you on the flip side.
Bye.